Mikael Riknes with IDG News Service. I was wondering if you could comment on the statements made by the French minister in Financial Times this morning, sort of saying that the ICANN is totally opaque, and also suggesting a General Assembly, which she reiterated during the session this morning. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that France, along with all countries that have benefited hugely from the openness of the Internet, would like to continue to see ICANN evolve and grow. So we absolutely support that. I think everyone that has seen our actions and what we're doing speak for that. If she or others have ideas to create new structures to enable ICANN to improve, by all means, let's put these ideas on the table. We have open mechanisms to do that. Anyone can participate. And let's debate them. And if indeed we all agree by consensus with a diverse participation of all stakeholders, not just governments, but everyone, that this is the way to go, I think we should go. So I think the fact that any government, including France's, puts on the table good ideas, any ideas, it's our responsibility to consume them, to listen to them, and to advance ICANN. Because if ICANN doesn't advance, we're going to die. We have to progress all the time. We have for the last 15 years. We're not about to stop. So we welcome any effort to go that way. Now, I don't think ICANN is opaque. Transparency International, when they sent a team to look at us, they said you're one of the hardest working organizations on the planet to be transparent. So, and we are. And the assessment is that we are quite transparent. So I think we will continue to do that. Transparency, accountability, as I said this morning, are like perfection. So you have to keep working at them. You can never stop. And ICANN has been working very, very hard on these issues, and we will continue to.
Is the .wine so serious for them that they feel that the whole ICANN has to be rebuilt for that to happen the way they want it, or sort of what are they after, you think?
I don't know. It's good to ask them. I mean, wine is serious. We all like wine, so there's no issue with the fact that wine is a very serious matter. It is obviously also a major industry for France and, however, for other parts of the world. Many countries have wine industries as well. I think that their concern about this GTLD and other GTLDs is warranted, and there are mechanisms at ICANN for them to pursue, and they have pursued them, and they should continue pursuing. There are additional mechanisms they have. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, I understand we all get frustrated sometimes when we don't get the conclusions we want. But more importantly is to continue working through a process that has worked for many people for many years. And to remember that the Internet economy and the new GTLDs have created a huge industry that is serving a lot of people and building a lot of value. Let's keep focused on that, and I think we will all be okay. So.
Monika Ermert for Heise Online in Germany. On the transition coordination group, there have been calls to change the composition. Here, for example, in the Government Advisory Committee, how will changes be made? Who will decide on that, and when? What is the timeline for that? And the second question. Is it conceivable, that might be a question for Steve, I don't know, is it conceivable that the oversight part, if you call it oversight, is broken up? Because in the GAC session also Patrick Falström said that an organization like the ITF already has kind of oversight built in their processes. So is it possible that, and even that some run first and the DNS part might run later?
Yeah, I can.
So just on your first question, which was about additional changes, we have received 1,000 proposals for the first process that was published, right? we can't stay in a loop of changes to the process. This is the process of how we're going to run the process. If we keep doing this, we'll find ourselves, frankly, missing a huge window of opportunity to get this done. So I think you would agree with me that we had a big dialogue in Singapore. We issued an initial document. We received 1,000 comments that we spent weeks analyzing and working with the team on. As a result, on June 6th, we published a new, and we changed the process completely based on the input we got. We expanded it. We now have 27 people. We reduced the role of the board. We did all kinds of things to give people the sense that this coordinating committee is definitely not run by ICANN, has a full representation. We added diversity to the representation to ensure people come from all over the world. So all of that was done, and now we published it. Now, people will keep coming back with changes, but I think at some point we need to get going. So at the moment, the plan is for the first meeting of the coordinating group to occur on July 17th here in this hotel, probably in this room, so that they can start the work towards really it'll never be perfect, but I think we're close enough, and most communities we talk to are very pleased right now. So there will be additional demands. No one will find it perfect, but I think we need to move on at this stage, is my sense. And then we will have to spend the next few months talking about real substance and how to really do the transition of the stewardship.
Yeah, I want to simply emphasize the last point that Fadi made and alluded to before. The coordination committee is not where the action is going to be. It doesn't matter in the end of it how much you fiddle with expanding it or adjusting the composition. It's not a decision body. It's a facilitation body. The real work is in thinking through what the issues are. And the more time we spend on trying to fiddle with the coordination body, the less time we're going to wind up with actually getting into a substantive discussion. So to your point, the substantive discussions are what are the stewardship issues, where will the oversight be in future IANA processes, where is the division between policy and execution, and getting that blueprint clear is what has to be done. And we really need the people who are knowledgeable about the parts of the system, the ITF folks, the DNS experts, the top-level domain operators, and so forth, to be in the room and having that discussion. And the rest is a kind of administrative piecing together of that, and that's where the real action is going to come.
Just a quick follow-up. Your personal opinion on, does it have to sit in one place, the oversight, or could it just be broken up?
I'm going to be very clear. ICANN was purpose-built to house the IANA functions. Period. When people think that we need to go and recreate another ICANN, there's no need for it. We already have it. If it can be improved, let's do it together. These processes are here for that. But this, frankly, ridiculous concept that we're going to go and create new institutions and go and recreate what ICANN was built to do. ICANN was built to do this, and it should continue to do this. Now, within ICANN, which is, as many of you know, not a simple monolithic group, it has many organisms, many supporting organizations, many mechanisms. We should ensure that the proper mechanisms are in place to address the concerns people have about separation of certain functions from others. And we already have some of these separations in place. Can they be strengthened? By all means. As Steve said, it is this coordinating group that needs to guide us on this. But the scope is clear. The scope has been published. We understand it. And again, to start again to build ICANN in 2015 is not really the wisest thing to do. We have ICANN here today. Let's make it a better place. And it's working quite well, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Fleischer with the Wall Street Journal. People would say that these days domains aren't as important than before. We have apps on our phones. We have Google, Facebook, all the traffic goes through there. So what does it matter who is in charge of rubber stamping whether domain names get approved or not? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think you should go ask 3,343 people what does it matter, but it obviously matters. You're correct. I mean, I think if I ask my children when is the last time they typed a web domain name, they probably would not remember when they did. So you have a point that the apps and the search engines are also mechanisms by which people find things. But I think what is becoming very clear is that the domain name is not just a mechanism to find something. It is more than that. It is a mechanism to find something with certain criteria that a search doesn't give you, for example, right? So if you wanted to make sure that St. Michael's School in Marylebone here next door is really a Catholic school, you can't today by Googling it, because anybody can be anybody today. But if you find St. Michael's School.Catholic, because they were able to get that denomination from .Catholic, that criteria tied to that TLD serves authentication. That's one value of a TLD. And that's not just for the Catholics. Believe me, for example, luxury goods manufacturers around the world are reeling from the people copying their goods and calling a Cartier watch a Cartier when it isn't. But if you buy a watch on myshop.cartier, you will know it's authentic. So authenticity is one important thing. Another thing is obviously community. I'm part of a very small minority in Egypt called the Coptic Church. And we are working together to build .Coptic, so we can tie our community around the globe, our institutions, our churches, our community. That's very valuable, because of course if I type Coptic in a search, I will get everything, including every word written in every book, and it'll be very difficult for me to authenticate that this is a document I can count on in my community. So there are many, many ways people will use the domain name system, not just so they don't type a long IP address, which was the original purpose, but maybe to authenticate, to build community. Cities around the world, France is actually going to consider holding a major conference called .Cities to invite mayors around the world who are now using their .City brands to create services for their citizens. NYC is looking at that now, so you can, you could put your address .nyc, and maybe one day you'll find your bills and your services and unfortunately your parking tickets and everything else you have to pay. So there are lots of ways that companies will brand, authenticate, and use the web.
But is that different now than in the past, and why is that more important now than before?
Because the web has become so vast that you need a way within these hundreds of millions of websites to actually rise. Now, today you search, or you pay somebody so that the search results put you up front. But the domain name system will evolve as a mechanism for people to actually brand themselves in the cyberspace. And as you may have heard me say last week, in my opinion, cyberspace is dead. There's no more cyberspace.
And I'm sorry,
everything's cyber.
I don't mean to take up too much time, but just using that, the fact that the domain names are so important for authentication, certainty, security, doesn't that give more, doesn't that make the argument of these wine producers, as we've been hearing, even more, serious?
Valid, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Their argument is extremely serious. The question is, they followed the process. They're not done following the process. They should keep doing what they're doing, follow the process. For example, a big step there, the applicant themselves for .wine, and Akram could confirm that, had asked for safeguards. But the GAC, where the French government and other governments in Europe were trying to pursue that agenda, could not come to a consensus. So, the board, with Steve's leadership, this week issued another letter saying, look, if you guys have other advice, if you can, with the same passion we heard from the French minister today, convince the GAC to come to a different consensus, by all means, we're here. We're here to listen. So I think what we need to do is to just focus on the process, make sure it's fair, it's open, it allows everybody to voice themselves, and not frankly scream that nothing is working when we don't get what we want, because we often don't get what we want. It's important, though, to follow the process. And they still have many steps. They have many options. I hope they will pursue them vigorously and with transparency and openness. On my side, guaranteed.
And I might add, it's not even, in this case, getting what they want. It's getting what they want the way they wanted to get it. I think there really is underlying quite common cause, authenticity and assurance that products are the right products is a shared value. And the subtlety is exactly where do you put those mechanisms, and there are still many steps and many avenues available to provide that level of assurance. And the particular path that France and other countries pursued did not prevail within the GAC. So then that leads to, if you don't get the answer you want, then the process must be wrong kind of thinking. And I would hope that the support for the process, which is very vital, and each of these countries will come to depend upon it for other things, should be a value to be preserved. And it does not mean that they've lost out on the core issue that's underlying their concern. There's plenty of ways for that to be pursued, and I fully expect that at the end of the day, we will not find the quality of the wine that we drink diminished because of the internet.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add, because this is a key issue. ICANN's processes are working. Look at what happened with .Africa. Look at what happened with .Amazon. For those who say that ICANN is controlled by one interest or the other and start painting, here's .Amazon. Isn't this a global company headquartered in the United States with great products, great services that we all use? But at the end of the day, when the board had to make a decision and took in the public interest of the people of the Amazonas and the countries that talk to us, we made a decision. Similarly with .Africa, where a single applicant is filed an RRP. She decided that this is her right, and it is her right, and we should let her pursue her right. Even if the whole African Union has a different view, her right is to say, I don't agree with the decision. So I think we should not focus on the one case where we could not, the governments could not reach consensus. Let's focus on the big picture of all the cases where in fact the system is working well and is well balanced, and no one is controlling ICANN but its constituencies.
My name is Remy Nweke. I work for Digital Sense Business News based in Lagos, Nigeria. To Akran, I would like him to give us invariably an update in terms of uptake of the global domains within his sector, and how you intend to increase that across the regions.
As you very well know, we received overall 1930 applications. Some of these, of course, are in were actually in contention sets, so we will probably delegate around 1,300 applications, 1,300 strings overall, 1,300 TLDs. Out of those, we have already signed 440 contracts, and we have delegated 320 out of these 440 contracts. I think also you've asked what are we doing about increasing the footprint of the TLDs in the developing countries. So right now, as you know, this round is the application round has been closed, so we received all the applications we will receive. We have moved forward with the processing of these applications, but we are committed to having a second round. We have also some commitments to do in order for us to launch the second round, and we're working on these commitments. like measuring the awareness, the global awareness of the new GTLD program, making sure that the program has promoted competition in the marketplace. So we have some steps to do before we can do the second round, but we're committed to that. And we have a lot of efforts ongoing in the development world, and like we have in the Middle East, we have a working group that is come together from the local community there for the Middle East and Africa, working on what they would like to see ICANN do to help promote the DNS in the region. But at the end of the day, ICANN cannot dictate or cannot do things to help the regions. They have to come and tell us what we can do to help them, what they need in order for us to help them, and we are committed to that. We have also, we just posted a working group paper on how to increase the number of registrars in the developing world, and there are a lot of suggestions in there for ICANN to look into, and we will consider whatever the community comes back with. The board will look into those and consider if there are any programs that we should actually put in place to help increase the number of registrars in the developing countries. So there are a lot of programs across all of ICANN, not the least of which is universal acceptance. Universal acceptance is basically accepting all of the IDNs across multiple barriers and making sure that the internet and the DNS works in other scripts than Latin. This program is also underway, and let's remember that we've had, for the first time, over 100 applications in scripts not in Latin script. And these scripts enable Arabic, Chinese, Cyrillic, and other languages to coexist with Latin on the internet, so that somebody that's looking for something does not have to use multiple keyboards. They can use their native keyboard across everything they do if they only use one language and one script. So all of these programs are things that the community is developing and making to enable the DNS and make the DNS a friction-free system on the internet. I hope that answers your question.
And if I can just add, if you think about the local engagement strategies that Fadi has mentioned, that's very much our aim, is to engage with the local community there, try and build capacity and encourage people to create more registrars, people to get involved in new GTLD programs on the ground. That's our major drive, is to be, as part of the globalization effort of ICANN, is to go and work with the community to be truly diverse across the board.